The best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time is today. So like just do anything. There was lots of times when I was, a lot busier than my day job and I had, two young kids. There's plenty of days back then where I wasn't able to do anything after work or before work or something like that. So, or on the weekends, I made a list. And as long as I kept moving forward in any way, shape, or form, I was okay with that. I was okay with, great, even if I take a step back, now I learned of what not to do the next time. What I've really kept in the absolute back of my mind as the last resort is that this is an unbelievable learning experience. If, God forbid, this goes belly up in 2 years and I need to go back to the corporate world or whatever else, I'm going to have such an amazing story to tell people about. I built this thing by myself. Yes, I have all this experience, but I now have this. I'm taking a leap, and yes, it's scary as hell and all this stuff, but I'm doing what I think is best for myself, my family, and ultimately, if it doesn't work out, I've set myself up in a better position than I would have been 2 years anyway. Maybe a little bit lighter in the pocketbook, but it is what it is. It's worth the risk, in my opinion.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Behind the Food podcast. I'm here with Mark Brown today. He's the founder of dude, I can't pronounce it. Has something to do with
ONOIN.
ONOIN. Uh, Really excited to talk to you, man. When you reached out and I went to your LinkedIn profile, I saw you'd only been doing this for like a couple months. But you'd been in food for a very, very long time. So I guess like to start, just I guess tell everyone what it is that you're working on now and why you decided to leave the corporate world. I believe you were at a co-packer last. Is that what you're doing?
I was doing co-man
Yeah.
manufacturing for Hain Celestial, so I was the work responsible for the relationship of working with on the brand side.
Yeah. So why leave and start your own brand?
Yeah, of course. So, it's something that I kind of had an idea for a really long time. In grad school, we were challenged to sort of find white space in a product development class, and I had worked for a produce distributor who I still connect with today, and I sort of thought, well, they have chopped garlic, why don't they have chopped onions? And that was kind of the end of it. I went, finished my master's degree, went to work for companies like Danone in product development, supply chain. I was employee number 8 at Clio Snacks, the first R&D hire outside of the founder, and then went over to Hain Celestial, where I was also doing R&D, and then contract manufacturing, co-man management. But yeah, I love the company. I really had a lot of time, great times meeting the people there, but Hain Celestial is not doing so well from a financial standpoint, let's just say. So it was really going to become time to either find a new job and start over and kind of do this, or I always thought I would come back to it and start my own company one day. And, to the timing, you're never going to have loads of free cash. You're never going to have loads of free time in life. So I thought this was about as good a time as any to do it. So I started doing some test batches, researched how to start a company, registered my Delaware-based C Corp, and kind of just went on from there. But, the idea had always been there for a long time. It just sort of evolved into, on O in. So it is said exactly how it's spelled. It just looks, your brain kind of just confuses it because it looks like the word onion, but it's on O in.
I
And yeah,
definitely.
really trying to deliver, chef level flavor and convenience to people without the hassle. You know, People are never going to like chopping onions. It's always going to be a pain point. It's never going to be a revelation that people enjoy it. There's a chemical component to onions that makes you cry. There's nothing we can do about that.
Yeah. I I have been trying to avoid crying while chopping onions for years. Megan and I cook a lot more than I think most people do. So like I chop a lot of onions. And I hate doing it. We usually like trade off like who's going to do this task because it sucks. I've done the whole like soak a bunch of like paper towels, like sit it next to the cutting board, like pray that it attacks that instead of my eye, but that never works. Yeah, man, it's absolutely wild. So is that the like kind of thesis for like why you came up with this? Was like people just hate chopping onions?
Yeah, pretty much honestly was it. Of course, there's a bit of luck and, more that goes into starting a food company. Justin's peanut butter is something I always point to. Organic natural peanut butter was on the market and available for your own grinding at most stores long before that. They had really great branding, really great product reach, and sort of built a community and eventually exited to Hormel for what, $800 million. So it's not so much that convenience and whatever else. It's just that I wanted to really build something that people would enjoy, and there's a need for it. There has to be a need for it. That's I think really the biggest thing is building a community and sort of getting lucky with some of these energy drink companies. Whatever is really a shot in the dark, popcorn, whatever. But building something that will withstand trends and it will always remain a need in the market. People are never going to have more time on their hands, so that's the convenience side of it. People are always going to want help in the kitchen. They may not know how to cook. That's the culinary side of it. And then, to your point about chopping onions, not only is it a task that takes time, but it truly is painful. I mean, what I used to do when I was making these things by hand at first was I would set up, my kid's stroller fan, put that right next to it, and kind of have the air circulating away from my face because if not, I would just be having to take a break every 2 minutes because my nose and my ear, eyes, it stinks. So yeah,
So I'm guessing now you've moved on to co-manufacture.
yes. I spent a lot of time, of course, and that's all sort of the things. Not that I didn't have to validate the concept, because of course that I did, but I didn't really have to go very far in asking people if they like chopping onions or if people needed help in their cooking and wanted more clean label options. So I knew that there was always going to be some sort of need for it in the market. So after I did a lot of my benchtop testing and you know, not scaling, but tweaking the recipe a little bit, I sort of went right to the co-man space and tried to find a partner because the second that, a retailer is interested or you need a bigger PO, I can't be scrambling to onboard with a co-man and do trials and this and that. It's going to take months. Um, so, that was really the biggest thing was making sure that this product was scalable and that I could find a partner that would work with me, at least in the short, medium, and early long term, that I can really, scale with. And again, my focus has now been on sales, marketing, and growing the company. And I can just kind of send my POs to the co-man and not have to worry about it.
That's really interesting. What is the shelf life like on it? Because that's the first thing I think of. And also, you probably watched people when you were working at Hain Celestial, and then even when you worked like at the other businesses, like it's pretty common for someone to be like, at least at the founder R&D level, to be like timeline, quick. But then like everyone else along the supply chain be like, dude, like we cannot do that. Um, so
Yeah.
like two questions would be like one, like, okay, when you're working with a big order volume, like from a co-man, like how is that impacted by like shelf life? It is a vegetable. I'm kind of curious about that. But then also like as far as like timing, you're probably right. Like, did you see that a lot with like founders, R&D people, like not having the, especially people who haven't been in the industry before, like not having like the thought that like, oh, this might take a while to get this manufacturer up and running.
Yes. And so much of it is yes, I'll tackle the second question first. There's so many things that you can do in parallel, but there's also so many things that need to be sequential. And I think I've mentioned this before, but something as simple as great, I did my branding, I did all this, or I'm working on packaging design. All right, send us your die line. If you don't have the jar size and know what your product is going to look like, you can't then kind of finish your packaging. So it's like, all these things sort of need to coalesce into one. So if you don't have your contract manufacturer and your package and all these things sorted, you can't finish packaging. And then once you finish packaging, that process takes a couple weeks to months to develop, then lead times to order. So, you could think you're close and realistically you're 6 months away just because of something like that. So you really need to sit down and sort of look at the building blocks and what we used to call the critical path timeline of what can be parallel path, what can be sequential, and kind of make sure you're hitting those bigger items first to keep the the total timeline on task. And then the second, yeah, shelf life is 2 years, so it's a hot fill product. So if you're talking cooking terms, it would technically be like blanching the onion. So we are cooking it, we're bringing it to a kill step temperature, hot filling it, and then the combination of low pH, high acid, and the fact that it's oil, oil has been a natural preservative for many years. Uh, Therefore, nothing really grows on it. So it's similar to like a pasta sauce that you have to refrigerate after opening, but it is dissimilar to a pasta sauce in that we have a lot less sugar and a lot less water, which means a lot less growth medium for yeast and mold. So I've used this in my fridge for months on end after. Not that it should last you that long. I just happen to have a lot of jars. But it's 2 years unopened, and then probably like 2 to 3 months. Of course, if you sneeze onto it, that might be lower, but that's sort of the same thing. Pasta sauce. Sometimes you open it after a week, there's moldy. Sometimes you forget it in your fridge for 2 months, and you look and it's great. So just one of those things.
Yeah, that's always one of those mixed bag things, man. Like I think so many people in their minds they want like the world to be easily predictable, especially in the food safety space, but they don't realize that like generally we're looking at like the worst case scenario. Like when you talk to the general public and you say like, yeah, my shelf life is X, or like this is refrigerated. I've gone through this with our product with no baked for the
Hmm.
longest time. The water activity in our cookie dough is actually quite low. And because of that and the like pure vanilla extract that we put in it, technically you could sit it out and like sit it out unopened and it wouldn't mold for probably like 21 days. Like it has a
Hmm.
21-day ambient shelf life. But like I would never tell someone because it would confuse them. Like, yes, it's ambient. But they're like, what do you mean shelf stable? You're like, well, stable to a point. Stable the same way that like a bag of chips is stable until like something goes wrong. Um,
Well, that's what people say. Oh, and nothing can go back to oil. I said, have you ever eaten a rotten bag of like potato chips? I said, what do you mean? I said, it smells like paint thinner, and it's like that's oil. Oil can get oxidized, but yeah, I mean, of course, everything can go bad, and I deal with it all the time with my wife. Is this bad? Smell it, look at it. Like use your senses. Like you'll kind of know if something is bad. Like
yeah.
you open up a bad piece of meat, you're gonna smell it before you taste it. Like you have to go through that whole process to figure it
Yeah, and I think people like for the most part want it to be like very predictable. So it's just like, dude, this is the shelf life. Let's move on. Like, let's not have this really nuanced conversation around like whether or not something is spoiled or whether it will spoil and what does that even mean? Because like you
out.
said, a lot of things just oxidize. They don't even really like go bad per se. They just
Well, my
taste like.
favorite one is salt. You'll see the packages that say like 100-year-old, 100 million-year-old Himalayan sea salt, and it goes bad in the next 3 years. Salt is a rock. It is not even an organic compound. It cannot go bad because it is literally a rock that you just grind up and put on your food. And yet people have a shelf life on it. The real reason is actually that if you want, in order to prove out your shelf life, you need to have documentation. So all these companies, flour, salt, all these things that theoretically can last forever, unless you have documentation proving that from the supplier side, they just say 2, 3 years and kind of go from there because no one wants to keep records for 10 years. That's the real reason, though. Salt, it's a rock. It's literally a rock.
Okay, well, you're here first, everybody. You need to have documentation, and therefore you can't prove that rocks will last for the rest of time. No, I love that. That's actually hilarious and kind of sums up the whole entire conversation in
Yep.
one item. Yes, this rock can't go bad. It's a rock. You like eating it, but it is a rock. Fascinating. Cool, man. Well, tell me a little bit about like the leap. Because you like you're new into this entrepreneurship thing. Um, a lot of people a lot of people think about it. A lot of people consider like, oh, maybe I want to start my own company. Maybe I want to start my own business. Maybe it's not in CPG, but like with anything, there's quite a leap there from like I'm not doing it, I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking about it. I've heard from thousands of people at this point, yeah, I have this idea. I'd really love to do this thing. Wouldn't it be so cool? And then they don't. How mentally did you get over that hump? I think that hump is like it's not well understood and you were so close to it at this point that I'm actually really curious like you probably still remember like here's the feelings, the thoughts, the things. What allowed you to get past that?
Yeah, it was a really big challenge. Obviously, I still had my previous job when I came up with the idea and started working on it. But, what you said, I kind of look back and when I was talking to people, going back to late or like mid 2024, I was having people sign NDAs and whatever else because it's an idea. But it's funny you say that because anybody can have an idea, but go and doing something about it is the much more difficult portion. So, yes, I got overwhelmed quite easily at the beginning. But what I really tried to do is kind of like we talked about. I know that it's going to be a long process. I know that if I'm building something to last, I need to do things in the correct way. Yeah, you can register an LLC in 10 minutes very easily. I did not want to do that because I know that if you're taking outside investment, you need to be a C Corp. So kind of looking down the road and thinking that yes, there might be a faster way to do things, but really kind of stopping and looking and making sure that I am doing things the right way to get myself up on that right track. As far as taking the leap, I did all of those things. I just left my job at the end of August. I had my production, I think about 2 weeks later, and I got in, we launched and officially launched online D2C at, I think, October 1st. And I started rolling into stores like 2 weeks ago. So it's really been very quick in that sense, but obviously a lot of things were happening behind the scenes. So until I was very confident that A, there was a need for this product, B, that there was a path forward, whether it's contract manufacturing, branding, whatever else, but kind of like what I just mentioned about the packaging or this or that, like I didn't want to quit and be in the lurch without a paycheck and whatever else without that finish line in sight. So there were lots of times I thought, okay, in 2 months I'm going to give my notice. Okay, that didn't happen. In 2 more months, and kind of making these false deadlines for myself. But in reality, in my mind, I knew when the right time was going to be, and it ended up happening, in the middle of the summer. Gave a couple weeks notice, kind of stayed on, finished what I need to do. But in terms of, sort of the idea, it's just doing something. I'm not one of those like motivational type people, but just thinking about a couple quotes of like, the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time is today. So like, just do anything. And then also, yeah, there was lots of times when I was, a lot busier than my day job, and I had, two young kids. My second one was born in the middle of this. So like, there's plenty of days back then where I wasn't able to do anything after work or before work or something like that. So, or on the weekends. Great, that's fine. I made a list. I knew what I needed to do, and as long as I kept moving forward in any way, shape, or form, I was okay with that. I was okay with, great, even if I take a step back, now I learned of what not to do the next time, and even something, what I've really kept in the absolute back of my mind as the last resort is that this is an unbelievable learning experience. If God forbid this goes belly up in 2 years and I need to go back to the corporate world or whatever else, I'm going to have such an amazing story to tell people about. I built this thing by myself. Yes, I have all this experience, but I now have this. So it was really kind of framing about, yeah, I'm taking a leap, and yes, it's scary as hell and all this stuff, but I'm doing what I think is best for myself, my family, and ultimately, if it doesn't work out, I've set myself up in a better position than I would have been 2 years anyway. Maybe a little bit lighter in the pocketbook, but it is what it is. It's worth the risk, in my opinion.
It's definitely worth the risk. I think a lot of people just have a hard time like taking the baby steps, like the initial baby steps to get there. And it sounds like for you, it was just like, hey, like baby steps are baby steps. We're just gonna keep moving forward. We'll eventually get there. You just kind of have to commit to like actually taking action. Tell me about the day that you quit your job. Like what did you do when you gave your notice? Like did you know like obviously you just said I kept setting fake
Yeah.
deadlines, passing. How did you get there? Like what was that like and what did it feel like?
So, I really, really liked my boss. He taught me a lot about the contract manufacturing space, and I really was learning a lot. Again, I spoke about Hain Celestial. Or anybody who's listening can Google their stock performance for the last 5 years. It's no one person's fault. A lot of tailwinds, blah, 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 whatever. Basically, what I said to him is, I'm leaving and I'm doing this. And, it kind of came out. Maybe I shouldn't have mentioned, this sort of other business I was kind of launching, but he sort of said like, hey, anything I could do to make you stay? And I said, absolutely not. It's like if the stock was X, I said it doesn't matter. If we got you this, it absolutely does not matter. There's literally nothing in the world that you can say to me at this point that will stop me from pursuing this. Maybe 2 years ago, again, when it was just a dream and great, you can give me a couple thousand more dollars and I'll be happy and kind of put my place for a little while, sure. But at that point, it had gotten kind of ballooned, and you know my belief in it and my thought about it was also growing. That by that point, because again, I had gotten the manufacturing setup, I had gotten the labels, this, that, the other. I was sort of just waiting until everything came together, but it's it was definitely scary, and again, it was just really exciting. Like, yeah, I don't know how to describe it other than that is yes, I'm scared shitless. Sorry, most of the time, like finances, this, that, the other. There's always something to worry about. I mean, most jobs you don't go to sleep thinking about it, wake up thinking about it, in the shower, on the weekends, at all times, but that this is all encompassing. It's what I chose to do, but at the same time it's rewarding for myself, and I really wouldn't have it any other way, despite all the fear and everything else that kind of comes with it.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. Like it's very hard to describe and like now it's been so many years for myself and also kudos to you. You have two young kids. When I took the leap, I was a child. So it's a little different, right? Like I look at people like yourself and I'm like, you're making that real leap, but everything you're describing sounds so similar. I mean, the summer of 2017, when I eventually quit my job to join Megan with No Baked, she just walked out of her job after selling $100 of it, which is a whole nother story. Um,
Good for
but
her, yeah.
I know,
That's
good for her, right? Well, her boss, it's I'll tell it right now. Megan wanted to quit her job. She built her website on her lunch breaks, launched the DTC part. We were making it out of a commercial kitchen in Nashville. She recruited me to like do a lot of that. I learned that I actually like working in a kitchen, really a lot. She launched the website. We had micro influencers post about it. She gets 12 orders. She calls me. She says, I don't know how to fill these. We didn't think that far ahead. When you're 23, you don't think very far ahead about anything.
People actually want this? Oh my gosh, yeah, now I have to get it to them, yeah.
The boxes, like, what are we doing? Like, and a lot of them were in Nashville, so we were like, we could just hand deliver it. It'll be fine. And we'll just go to their house with a box. They're on the porch. The funny thing that happened though was she had this dead end job that she really didn't like. It wasn't dead end, but it was like very entry level at Sony Music. And she went to her boss and she said, "Hey, so I have this thing. Is it very similar to what you just said? I have this thing. The bug is in there. I can't like. There's nothing you could do. Like I have to leave." And she told him like, "Hey, like my job is kind of like a like worthless job at this company. Like I'm not." She's like, "I literally have nothing to do. I sit at my desk all day. I don't do anything. I'm going to leave now." And he was like, "But you could stay for 2 weeks." And she was like, "No, I don't know what I would do. There's no work to do." And he was like, "You could figure it out." And she was like, "Okay, I can figure it out. I'm going to walk out that door." And she left. And I was in a slightly different position. It was very similar to your job where like eventually I stuck around for my 2 weeks. But when I put it in, my boss was just like, rather than, it was a little different. Rather than try to convince me to stay, she looked at me and she was like, "I saw this coming." I was like, "Okay, you saw this coming? Like you knew?" And it's like, yeah, she's like, "Everybody knows. It's all you talk about. It's all you do every day. Like you've told all of us like all how cool this is that like Megan is doing this, and it sounds like you're probably joining her." And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, probably." And it's like it's built up so much around you and it's all you think about. You think about it when you're going to sleep, when you're waking up, when you're in the shower, when you're doing whatever. Every minute away from work, I was working on that. And you start to realize, oh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And then
Yeah.
when you finally leave to do that, it feels kind of freeing, which is in a strange way, it's supposed to be scary, but at the same time, I don't know. It makes a lot of sense that you would not feel weird about it when it's something that you've been like dreaming about, working on, putting so much effort into, in your case, for years. And then being like, this is the time. I'm going to leave.
Yeah. Pretty much. It was just exactly. It was that time, and I had been interviewing elsewhere, and in final rounds of this and that. And who knows if I had gotten those things, would anything had changed? But it was similar to my boss of like he kind of understood at some point when I was like, no, this is all I care about, and I've worked so hard on this, and I really want to see where it goes. Again, if it doesn't go anywhere, that's fine. I've taken that risk, and I know the consequences, but things are going pretty well, so I'm really excited about it. I just want to keep capturing that momentum.
Right, yeah, so things are going well. I'd love to hear from you since you had experience in the industry before. A lot of people I think that jump into it don't. It's probably 50-50, maybe a little less than 50-50. What have you done like day one to like today? Like so from when you quit your job to today to like I guess like strategically get distribution, sell into certain stores. Are there any things that you've done that you feel like other people wouldn't have thought of, or I don't know, just like what has gone well? I'm like really curious because you have a background in the industry and because you like watched it like up front, especially at your previous job. Like what steps did you take once you were like, okay, I don't have a job anymore, like here's what we're doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is that as a brand, you can't be everything to everyone. So find who your people are. I'm still actually in that space where, everybody, I initially thought it might be for, young professionals that don't know how to cook. Great. This provides that thing. Young parents that don't have time to cook. Great. That provides the convenience. But the more I've actually talked to it, like a lot of I didn't want to call them boomers, but empty nesters, like my parents included in that. Like, oh, great, I don't have to chop any onions anymore. Everything's included. It's not necessarily the group I would have picked because they have the time, money, and knowledge to know how to do these things, but don't feel like it. So, it's that's one is know your consumer, but it's really, I would say, focus on what you want to do first and kind of do it well. So I'm not chasing door count. I've been, presented opportunities other places, but what I'm really trying to do is own what I'll call my backyard. My backyard happens to be New York City area, which is kind of a mess with distributors and this and that, but really trying to focus on again, which stores do I think I would do well in, and then using those stores and that story and that velocity to really then take it national. Eventually, I'd like to start food service, which I know is sort of a whole nother arm of the business, but you have to do everything again, like we talked about, deliberately, piece by piece, but I'm sure I'm the 900th person to say this on the podcast. Everything is 10,000 times more expensive than you think it's going to be. So all of these channels, all the distributors, all demos, all the inventory, all these things are going to drain you. And it's not so much draining you of just everything, but it's the cash flow cycle that great. I sent out my orders to my distributors a couple weeks ago. I'm not going to get paid on that for net 60. There's no deductions included. You know, free fills, whatever else. Like so, you need to be very careful with your budget and your plan of what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. So again, for me, that's kind of owning these. Right now about 125 doors growing all the time, but continuing to. Right, that's how I'm going to have the velocity story and retail expansion. In parallel, I'm working with Amazon D2C to really kind of make marketing, social media, and get my name out there because that's also what needs to be true is that people need to know your brand. They need to see it before it's in the stores, or else no one's going to find it. No one's going to buy it. And you can sit on these shelves, say I have 10,000 door count, and you're never going to move, and that doesn't matter. You're going to be delisted, and you're going to be under because you have too much inventory that doesn't move. So
Yeah,
it's
and it
it's really
happens
being
so
targeted.
often.
Yeah.
So often people will actually the place I've seen it happen the most is with influencer brands. And we've talked about this on previous episodes. There are so many people who will come out, raise a lot of money, get into a bunch of doors, and no matter how many doors and how much money you have, the thing they don't have is an audience. And getting that audience is really hard. And a lot of people feel like, oh, you could pay for it. Oh, you could do this, you could do that. At the end of the day, doing the demos, having a presence in D2C, having a social media presence, building all of that, doing all of the content, acquiring the audience. The more people have asked me about like what is the hard part about CPG, the more I've realized like that's the hard part. And it might be the hard part for every business in 2025 is it's never been easier to build an audience, never had more channels to do it. It's never been harder to build an audience. Everyone else is attempting to do it at the same time as you. You better have a damn good story or a good product,
Or
which
a
is
lot of money.
a lot of money. If you have like infinite money, I mean, maybe, but the more I see people like spend and spend and spend, and then it goes very, very poorly, I'm like, I'm becoming less and less convinced that money can like get you there. And in fact, some of the like least scalable things get you there, which is like I go to events or like if you sold that product at a farmer's market, maybe it feels ridiculous, but at the same time, like maybe it creates like 10, 20 super fans and then they tell their friends and then they order it on Amazon or whatever. Um,
Yeah.
those non-scalables seem to be a lot harder to recreate and replicate. I don't know. I have a lot of thoughts on this. And I also have I'm supposed to shout them out at the beginning of the episode, and I forgot. Now I'm remembering. I have a partnership with Relish, but also Michael Diego, who's the founder of Relish, is one of my co-founders of Sprout CPG, which is our new venture accelerator. His entire thesis and like why he reached out to me and said he wanted to do it was he sees every day that a lot of our brands just have an incredibly hard time building audience. And he's convinced he can help them do it. But he's watched people struggle over and over and over and over again in the restaurant world first, and then now in the CPG world to just like get people's attention. Like people get the doors to your point, and they just don't move off the shelf. And it's really, really wild.
Yeah. And that's also why, everyone will say, "Oh, I can't pronounce the name, this, that, the other." I say, "Good. It's creating something. It makes people, like you say it different ways." But at the end of the day, a couple things. One, you'll recognize that it's the word onion. So about building an audience and having people understand your product. But, I say about money because, kind of going back to your previous question, how do you do it? How do you build an audience? And, how did I know what I wanted to do? Anybody can launch on D2C. Most people build the D2C, you build your story, and then you take that to retail. And, the people I always talk about Graza, Truff, and Magic Spoon, doing 50 million plus each on D2C, and now they're in retail. They were all using all that customer story, everything else to move into retail. So I always knew that that's the end game anyway, but I don't even want to know or can't imagine how much money they spent kind of bombarding everyone's feed constantly. Listen, it worked. They kind of were able to flip that switch and get to that point where they're able to move through retail and everything else. But it's a really big challenge where either you're going to get brute force it with a lot of posts and a lot of time and a lot of money and a lot of repetition, or you can try and do it the organic way and build slow. And there's something to be said about both ways. We're trying to mix in some traditional advertising and whatnot, but a lot of it is sort of just messaging people on Instagram, sending out samples, no strings attached, and seeing if people like it. And building exactly what you're saying, fans, evangelists of the brand that will, it's really hard. People want their product to work in Whole Foods, Sprouts, and Walmart. Those are not all the same consumers. And kind of really, that's what I said at the start of one question is you can't be everything to everybody. So really focus on who you're going to be and do it well.
Yeah, you really have to like focus in on like who is that like core consumer, and that actually makes to your point about like Magic Spoon and Truff. A lot of the guys that really and Graza like they smashed D2C, like they did an amazing job. One, they have really killer packaging.
Yeah,
So do you, by the way.
thank you.
FYI. But so they have like killer packaging, cool, like catchy brands. But then the thing that they really have beyond that is they like identified who is our core customer. They were definitely not everything to everyone. And they just like went after that person. Like, and when you're doing social media, I think in general, or you're building like an audience for anything, you have to really think that question through. Because if you don't, then you just end up spraying and praying and being like, a bunch of weird stuff. Like you're not focused in on like one audience. It's like this podcast. I had someone talk to me about like, well, what's the goal of like the podcast? I was like, oh, the goal is just like people who haven't started their food business yet. Hopefully they listen to it and they can get some like advice from founders and they move through that. But like the audience is only people who want to start a food business. That's it. Like,
Mhm.
why would I make this podcast for random people? Like, it doesn't make any sense. They don't want to listen to me and you talk about Komen. Like, not,
Yeah.
that's not like easy listening or fun. Um, so yeah, you got to like really hone in. So I guess my question to you is like, you mentioned it before, like maybe it's like essentially like older empty nesters that like don't want to do it, but is there an audience in your head that you think will go after on like social media?
I mean, the typical answer, like every single person on social media, is going after moms and cooking channels and lifestyle, whatever else. That's yes, we're going to dabble in that, but I think a lot of it is going to have to gear toward, the opposite ends of that, either the Gen Z, again, the people that are graduating and may not have the cooking skills, or, people again that are tired of it. Like you made dinner for your family every day for 18 years. Give yourself an effing break. Like that's the tagline is like there it's so hard to reach the 30 to 40-year-old moms. It's very expensive to try and reach them too because everybody is, but so maybe we kind of pivot and go after the other people first and kind of see. But I'm going to kick myself for even saying this, but it is for pretty much everybody that cooks at home. So that spans every demographic, every whatever, every high, low, medium. I mean, yes, it's more expensive than an onion. Of course it is. But
It's
yeah.
been becoming a thing that people do less though. Like I mentioned, like Megan and I cook a lot. I cook so much
Mhm.
that shout out or not shout out to Caraway, like I ruined your pants. I ruined it. It took 3 years.
Coding off, yeah.
It took 3 years. They were great, but like I fucked them up real bad. They're not good anymore. I think cast iron is probably what I should stick with. Like if you cook a lot, you should probably just stick with that. And
Get some stainless, get some all clad
you could do
stainless.
I should do stainless.
It's a
Stainless is
pain
like
in
the
the ass,
top
but yeah.
stuff. Um, yeah, so I ruined my pans. So that tells you how much I cook because I think most people are like, "Oh, caraway lasts forever." I'm like, apparently not. Apparently it doesn't. But like it's a smaller and smaller demo of people, and so maybe it is like the activity and not necessarily like demographic. It's like, hey, like people that like to cook, like that's our audience. Like you like to cook, you hate cutting onions. No one who likes to cook likes cutting onions. It's completely true. Which brings me to a question. When you were doing like not even before you were doing like the benchtop stuff, but like when you came up with this idea, was it because you like to cook?
Yes, but at the same time, like honestly, it was really identified as a need in the market of why don't they have chopped garlic, and why do they have chopped garlic and not onions? Because that chopped garlic is everywhere. Uh,
It is, and I don't even remember the brand, but it's that like blue top lid.
It's
Like
so
they don't.
funny you say that because they don't have enough room on their panel because it just says minced garlic, and that brand is called Spice World. They're the largest player in it, but that's also why I wanted to have in the name the word because if it said Mark's Relish, you'd be like, well, what is that? But your brain immediately knows there's an onion in this jar. Okay, the pictures of everything, the hierarchy says jalapeno lime, onions, and kind of figure it out. But it's so funny you say that because they have no brand recognition because it's just minced garlic. But yeah. What were you,
I don't
lost
know,
my train.
man. But that was a that was, I we just went on this. I'm stuck thinking about the blue lid now. I'm like, oh, that is their brand. That's all they got. It's true, and it's probably better to have a brand in the space than not, because I feel like Spice World, like the that company is just like endless spice. It's kind of like McCormick, where it's like you guys just make all of the spices. Very different than like you go to like the hot sauce aisle, you see truff, and you're like, oh, truff, or like Graza. To your point, you're identifying some stuff with Graza and truff that's very similar to what you do, where it's like you would have thought it'd be very hard to differentiate hot sauce. Maybe not as much as like, dude, differentiating olive oil is insane. It's olive oil. Not gonna lie, I don't buy Graza. I just buy the Costco olive oil. Occasionally I buy like really good olive oil, but like and people would look at me and say like, oh, well, olive oil is different depending on the type of olive oil you buy, but it's all just kind of olive oil to most people. Like butter is butter to most people. And so yeah, I mean, you kind of have to be like brand forward. You're doing like chopped onions, and like yeah, you can flavor it. You can throw like cool stuff in there. Like technically, it's like relish, but like I don't know. Like probably good to be like really forward on the brand and try to like let people know like, hey, we are the place that you go if like you like to cook, and like this is like the premium brand.
Yeah, and you know, that's exactly it. And that's also where, the name kind of comes in is that, of course, it looks like the word onion, but on OIN, because consumer education is going to be really tough. Like the garlic, yeah, you put it in where there's a recipe for garlic, but where would you use flavored onions? So really trying to hammer home, you can use it on or in anything. But yeah, consumer education and packaging design and all that is extremely challenging. There's a lot that kind of goes into it, but one of the things that you mentioned about olive oil being overwhelming and pasta sauce and truff is actually, excuse me, to try and erase myself from that space. I'm going to be merchandised in produce because I need to be at that place where you're making a choice between, am I going to buy an onion, herb, and all of these things, or am I going to buy the all-in-one solution? It's the center of the store is overwhelming. There's a lot of pickles, olives, this, that. Like you get very overwhelmed. You're not there every single time. You know where you are every time? Produce. So that's where a lot of the chopped garlic from Spice World will actually sit, and we're starting to sit next to them on shelf and kind of people always buy it. That people may not say they like cooking with it or whatever else, but it's in everybody's fridge, so
It
somebody's
is
buying
actually in everybody's fridge. And like unless you're like really into like chopping or mincing
it. For
garlic.
cooking, that's what we were talking about. Is yeah, when I was in grad school, it was a food science culinary program, and I found out that I really loved to cook through that and through with children, whatever else. Yeah, the thought of cooking everything fresh every single night because I don't want to use the jarred garlic and I want to chop it up myself and do everything just gets really overwhelming. And if the options are takeout and a nice home cooked meal, it's tough to kind of have that and you don't like the frozen food or you don't think it tastes good or blah blah blah, like you really need to have some sort of thing that's going to make it easier for you. So that's again what I wanted to do is clean label, easy solution where great, you can buy chopped onions from a grocery store, but it doesn't help you because you have to have oil, you have to know how much oil you're putting in, how much salt, vinegar. This kind of provides again all those things balanced in one where you take your jalapeno lime, put it with some meat that you're cooking, you have tacos, you're done. You've really seasoned well, delicious tacos that if you can use a spoon and a pan and meat, that's it. You know, I
Yeah,
probably have to send you some samples so you can
really.
try it for yourself. Yeah.
I would love samples. I would love to buy your onions.
So
Rather
on
than
Amazon, yeah.
yeah, I think like often like cooking is overwhelming, but especially when it comes to like what you just described, which is saying like a lot of people can like saute like a vegetable, or a lot of people can like cook some ground beef in like a pan, but like adding the spice, like there's a reason that like we were making pumpkin pie like last week. I was at my brother's house. We're doing the Thanksgiving thing. We're like we're gonna make pumpkin pie from scratch. We did that. We do it every year. Um, Super fun. I recommend it for anyone. But I was like, okay, you have like the spices. He was like, oh yeah, I have pumpkin pie spice. Like McCormick makes a pumpkin pie spice. It's technically five different spices all in one. It is just easier to buy the pumpkin pie spice because like how often are you using nutmeg? Like I don't know, probably not a lot.
Well,
I
then yeah, the rest of it, yeah, allspice, probably not much. Yeah, once a year, pretty much.
yes, they are going to sit in your pantry, and so it's like even to a point, it's like more cost effective. Like I one time watched these YouTube videos of like here's how you make like a Chipotle burrito bowl, and I was obsessed. I was like, I'm gonna replicate it in my house, Chipotle burrito bowl, and then I'm gonna see how expensive it was because I'm a nerd, and and I did that. but per ounce, like per serving, it was cheaper, right, than like Chipotle. Obviously, I hope so. Not much because they're buying in bulk. But then the thing that blew my mind was the amount of money I actually spent though on like buying the adobo peppers and like buying the seasonings and doing
Big
all
bunch of cilantro that you probably use 4 leaves on.
like what am I doing? Like I was like, this is gonna take like it actually like I think my grocery bill, like when I went to the grocery store was like $60, like maybe more to make one burrito bowl. It was like, guys, I just spent a bunch of money on spice. Megan, I came home and she was like, what are you doing? Like buy a bunch of shit we're never gonna use. I was like, yeah, but like I wanted to make a Chipotle bowl at home. She's like, just go to Chipotle, please. Um,
That's anytime if you're going to make Asian food, that's kind of, oh, I need 15 different sauces. I need a fish sauce. I need an oyster sauce. Use 2 tablespoons and it sits there. So, I mean, obviously I'm going to plug my product yet again, but that's also where I wanted to do it is that, yes, I have an original version where you could put anything you want in there, but the ginger lemongrass, do you ever keep that stuff in your house? No. But if you want to make a really authentic stir fry with the stuff you have in your house, great. Now you can do that. Same thing with jalapeno lime. Like, do you keep the cilantro in your house? No, you just do it you just describe what everybody does. You buy a huge bunch of fresh herbs, use 4 leaves of it, and then it wilts and you throw it away when it's brown and mushy in a week. Stop doing that. Like I don't talk about food waste and all this stuff, but it is a big part of it. We didn't even talk about onions. Do you use a full onion in all your recipes, or you cut up half of it and then the other half sits in the bag, starts growing, and then same thing, you throw it out in a week?
that's
Yeah,
actually guaranteed. All of those
yeah,
things happen to me, and they happen to anyone that cooks a lot. It's like,
yeah. Of
yeah,
course. Yeah.
you're gonna go over on spices. You're gonna have a bunch of spices you don't use. That's annoying. And then on the flip side, like, yeah, the onion, like, no, nobody uses a full onion in a recipe. I mean, you can. It's a lot of
But
onion.
depends how many people you're cooking for. But yeah, that's listen. Is my product gonna be for everybody? No, of course not. If you're cooking for 50 people and you dice up all the onions,
Get some
put
onions.
on your goggles and get to work. That's I wish I could help you, but that's it's really for it's for everybody, of course.
Hey,
But
well,
there
eventually
are
you'll have a
limits to
food
it. So
service
there's
pack. Eventually you'll have a food service pack. It'll be a giant
yes,
jar, and it'll be giant jar
Costco
of
size.
flavored onions. Yeah, I mean, perfect. Like, I'll buy that at Restaurant Depot, and I'll cook for my family of 50. Whenever that happens.
Exactly. Yep.
If Daniel was here, he would tell you that that would actually be very helpful for him. So I love that.
I always thought about it, and just one quick aside, the way I describe it is that's building a business. I'm building a brand right now. It is absolutely in the plan. It's in the pitch deck materials, blah, 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 whatever else. But, I kind of need to build the stability of ONOIN before I look at doing that because, yeah, even a couple of manufacturers I've talked to was like, oh, yeah, I make a pasta sauce, and, the first 5 ingredients are onions, garlic, oil. Like, I wish I had your stuff. So I was like, exactly. I wish it was available right now for yourself, for
Once you build up,
kitchens,
I think,
and
the
for like Blue
supply
Apron.
chain, yeah, like once you build up the supply chain and then you build it up as an ingredient, then you can go there. There's actually a brand that I use as a supplier. We use a couple different suppliers in this realm now, but like Natural Sprinkles. There is a Natural Sprinkle brand. I'm blanking on the name. They're out of Chicago though. And they make all natural sprinkles, so sprinkles with no food dye.
Let's let's talk after this. My best friend is a sprinkle company owner.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's wild. But yeah, it's like the same thing where they like for years we would reach out to them and I'd be like, and also in the all natural Oreo space, there have been a bunch of startup brands where I actually, as No Baked, was reaching out saying like, can I please buy 25-pound boxes of your stuff? And they would be like, no, we don't have it. And eventually I was like, I will come to your place and I will make it. Like I will just scoop it into my box. You could charge me whatever you want. Like, please. And at one point we were going through, I mean, we still do, like, you're going through like pallets of
Yeah.
sprinkles. I use more sprinkles because it's really weird. Nobody uses sprinkles except for me. I don't know why we use sprinkles either to make confetti sugar, cookie dough, confetti sugar, because it's like, it's
The
just
colors
sugar,
look nice.
dough, and then we throw sprinkles in it. And I don't know why the sprinkles are there. They also are the only thing that makes it expensive, by the way. That cookie dough is not that expensive to make until you start throwing 1,000 pounds of jimmies in it, and you're like, oh, now it's super expensive.
Yeah.
But yeah, I imagine people will eventually reach out, and it will be an organic extension, and it is a good business decision. But it's not like you're not going to bust your ass to like create the demand, when the demand will clearly find you.
That's exactly. My co-man's set up for it already. They do food service for their own brands. 10-pound bag and box. They have a vertical FFS machine where you can do 2 ounce like kind of sachets like the Ken salad dressings for Blue Apron type application. So yeah, it's definitely in the plans. It's more exactly like you're talking about. I just don't have the wherewithal to go and solicit the business right now, and then all the inventory and everything that comes along with it. But yeah,
Yeah, you
I
just
think
wait.
yeah, just waiting for people to come and say, hey, we love the brand, we love the concept. Can you do something in a 10-pound bucket for me?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
There'll be someone that comes along like me, who's another brand over that meets you at a trade show that's like, I make pasta sauce and we're trying to make this new SKU and like I love your like lemongrass. We put it in the sauce and they'll be like, yeah, we could put it in the sauce. Like let's make it happen. No, that's fascinating, but it's also it just makes a lot of sense. And on the restaurant side too, man, I mean like coming from like the restaurant world, I cannot tell you how excited people would be to have something like that because it just continuously makes your operation smoother and
Labor costs are
consistency.
high. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
like
yeah.
lowering the labor cost in the kitchen and then just creating like consistency of recipe at a certain point just makes so much sense. Like our scoop shops don't make the cookie dough at the scoop shop anymore. That just we did that when I was a child and I was dumb and it it was bad because like you would see the like whether it be reviews or social media feedback of someone saying like, yeah, I had no baked cookie dough and it was hard, and I'm like, how was it ever hard? Our cookie dough is like known for being soft. What are we talking about? And it's like
It's yeah.
someone at some shop at one point we had 9 of them across 4 states. It's like one of these kids in high school working for one of my franchisees decided that they couldn't read. And like today, they're gonna throw like twice as much flour in a batch of cookie dough. And now it tastes like flour dough. Like it's bad.
But even
Yeah, man.
something like that, you said mix, or is it violently? Because that can affect. Are you whipping air into the? So even something like that, it's all goes back to the process, the product, and quality control, and sort of like
Yeah,
you
you're
need
not
to
going to
get that
quality
under.
control a bunch of cooks across a bunch of
No,
restaurants. I'm sitting here in Louisville, Kentucky, where my in-laws live, and there are a bunch of restaurant chains based here. I know a few people in like the corporate supply chain at some of them, and like I can tell you that Texas Roadhouse isn't attempting to like they're not attempting to like train like grade A chefs in every city. They're like attempting to make it so easy that you can hire someone for 20 bucks an hour and they can like now become a killer
it is a
chef.
step by step process. Yeah, exactly. I mean, if it's not possible to have it from a central location to that point, Moe's and some places like that, since you mentioned Chipotle, ship in ingredients. Chipotle does everything themselves. So, I've snuck a peek at some of the recipe sheets, and it's exactly how you do everything step by step and making it foolproof that somebody in the morning shift comes in or things get twisted around or you have to be on guac station or whatever else. Anybody can do that. And that's super important, whether it's a restaurant level or food service. And kind of going back to manufacturing is, yeah, of course I was there for for the couple first productions of my product, but at some point, am I going to be there for everything? Of course not. It's the same way in R&D when I was at, these huge companies, the guys on the plant would ask me what I want to do. It's like, pretend I'm not here because I'm not going to be here for the long term. So how are you going to do this when whatever. So, to your point about the franchisee, whatever, they're stewards of your business. So, you need to make sure that everybody's doing things the proper way. And I know this is a long time ago, whatever else. And sounds like, that was a lesson learned, but it's just something that like
Franchise
you got.
again, and it's very different now. And
Yeah.
I will also say that, like you mentioned, like the plant, and it's like I built and then ran our own plant for 3, 4, almost 4 years. And doing in-house production is not something I would recommend to like any startup CPG brand. And we originally had a co-man, so we were not doing that. But once we gained enough volume and we
Yep.
were making some certain business decisions behind it because there was no one in the space making a lot of cookie dough, I tried it. I hated it, and I will say that it's not for the faint of heart. And one of the main reasons is, like you said, like you have to really be able to get down to like the SOP level of why will this person who, let's be completely honest, is probably going to make like 20 bucks an hour will be like in charge of this one step of the process because it's a plant and like they're the key step and like no you cannot pay them 50 bucks an hour like it just like there's a mismatch of like value and like what you need them to do and a lot of the times a machine is a better like fit for that process. The problem is like without scale you can't have the machine and then like I actually have a friend with the burrito company where they hand roll the burritos still. They're doing 9 figures in sales They still handhold them because like at the plant they just simply can't like they cannot justify the machine. And so it's like now you have these people who they're not making $20 an hour. I don't know what they're making.
Yeah.
It's not that. And they're in the middle of nowhere in South Dakota and they're rolling burritos. And it's like they have to trust this person. And like creating that level of consistency is so hard. It's extremely hard. It takes a lot of effort, and I think yeah, for the R&D people, it's probably like an extreme pain, especially at a larger company, like extreme pain.
Yeah, I mean, especially if it's one thing, if it's one co-manufacturer, but another thing, anybody who's tried to cook the same dish on two different stoves can tell you that, things are different with different machinery. Even something as anybody who's made couscous before will see on the recipe box it says for higher altitude preparation. So even something like atmospheric conditions can change the way you're cooking and processing things. So like it is really, really challenging. Oh, you mentioned piece of equipment. Oh, this one is comparable to this one, but it's in a different plant. So like, what are the settings needed to be here and there? It's making a consistent formula is extremely difficult, and that's kind of going back to my initial comment, or earlier in the conversation about finding the co-man, trusting them as a partner, and sort of making sure that we had a really great long-term fit. Because again, you can have all of this stuff, you can have the best brand and the best samples and whatever else, but if you cannot make it at scale repeatedly, you're done. You know.
And it's
People buy your product and it's not good twice. That's it. They'll never buy it again.
no, because like you've never bought it. Like nobody can sit here and tell me like, oh yeah, I gave that brand another chance. Like no, you didn't.
You might give it another chance for one reason or another, but two, no, that's it. You're done. It's so
Definitely.
that's the kind of stuff where it's like, especially as an early brand, you have to make that right impression where I'm not advising people to go to a co-man that's too big for what they need now, but just kind of be prepared with that conversation and have them sort of, I don't want to say on the hook, because yes, you're going to have to do trials and testing and it's all going to cost money, but you really need to just be prepared to make that second step. To your point, whether that's insourcing or a large co-man, whatever else, but assume you're going to be successful and assume that big PO is going to come your way and you need to scale quickly. What's your plan?
Yeah, you gotta have a plan. And like the biggest stress that I had running our own plant was like at a certain point, I did get it up to the pace of like 10,000 pounds a day or 10,000 jars, I guess. Um, it was so fucking hard to even get there that it
Every
was like
day, every second, every piece of machine, every employee.
you
I
start to
can't
like
imagine
if you're the founder, you start to like look at the dollars and cents behind like each and every little tiny step, and you start being psychopath.
how many
And
gloves is this guy taking? How many hairnets is this guy using per shift? Like yeah, it's not
it
something
gets
you want to be
real.
worried about.
I got staff 20 people. Like you guys use too many gloves.
Yeah,
The whole
I'm
thing,
I'm bleeding lab coats here. Yeah, it's like it's
it's
a
too
really
much.
tough. It's
But what I would say, like to anyone, is like you kind of do have to have that level of like detail, and you have to really, really like know what it is you want, even if you're working with a co-man. Like to your point, you have to like really pay attention, and you have to be willing to get your hands dirty. I mean, we're onboarding a new co-man at the moment, actually for No Baked, and it's because of the food service product, and I will be, which we use at our own scoop shops, not anywhere else, but I'll be flying there and I'll be spending several days like kind of reactivating the same thing I was doing in the past in a different plant. But like you got to kind of be willing to get your hands dirty and like really like create the SOP and like make it happen. And if you're not, then it's just like it's a hard process to not be involved in. All right, I have one last question for you.
yeah, of course.
Or like running out of time. The thing that I'm really curious about is like how did you get involved in this industry in the first? Because like you've been in it for a while. Like what drew you to the food industry and like why are you here?
Pretty boring answer. It's recession proof. I was in college and kind of graduated at the time of that. And most people I know are in finance, law, this, that. I was trying to think of what is always going to survive a recession, where there's always mergers and acquisitions and kind of big money floating around in there. People always need food. I know COVID was brutal and this, everyone's losing their jobs left and right. I thought food companies were never busier than the back half of March and April in 2020 because food has to stay on the shelf. That's it, bar none. Times are good, more people are eating out, doesn't matter. Still go grocery shopping. Times are bad, grocery shopping goes up. So food is really, there's always a new trend, there's always something. And I'd struggle with my weight a little bit, so kind of learning the nutrition side of things. But also, there's so many facets within the food industry and CPG. Like people would ask me, "Oh, you make the flavors?" I said, "No, we have flavor companies for that. There are multi-billion-dollar flavor companies. That's all they do. They have flavorists that are experts in chemistry. and you have product developers, and you have this, and it's really something for everybody within this industry. I'm not a chemistry forward person. I like the business side of things, so I would always make, pay attention to how marketing is speaking and make sure that as I'm developing, I'm keeping cost considerations and yield and all of these things you're taking into account. So it's really there's always something going on, and it's just really interesting industry. There's always new cool stuff around, and it's fun to talk food,
Dude, it
fun to
is
eat
fun
food.
to talk food. It's fun to eat food.
It's
Yeah,
a
the
fun,
reception
it's a more
thing.
fun industry than like banking or both our parents are lawyers. A lot more fun than that. So yeah.
Dude, I saw a post that I sent one of my friends yesterday on Instagram. It was on the Overheard on Wall Street account, and it said that if you well, it's essentially this like story within the caption. It was like if you can make money in like finance, you probably can make money doing something else too. And it's basically a story about a guy who like burned out banking and then he became a carpenter, and then he made more money as a carpenter than he did as a banker. And I was like, yeah, because he's probably smart, but like doing something he's passionate about is probably helpful, you
Or
know,
I'm miserable every day. Yeah, exactly.
in the morning. And I was like, yeah, like more people should probably consider like what do you like doing because you're probably going to grind at it a little harder. And all businesses are great, but to your point about the recession thing, I have a friend that I met in Nashville years ago, and he's like fifth generation in this business that's like the largest producer of cereal in the United States. His great great grandfather started it as a like flour mill
Hmm.
in St. Louis, I believe. And so that was in like the 1800s. And his grandfather is who turned it into like a behemoth of a company, like started co-packing cereal for people. So like most of the white label cereal you see in the grocery store, they make all of it. Recession years are their best years, like by far. Like they make way more money, and their
Well,
family.
especially cereal. Yeah, cereal for dinner is I hate to laugh.
Yeah, uh, kind of dystopian, but also like
Hmm.
fascinating that like he was like, yeah, recessions like honestly we do better because people eat out less. They end up like buying more food at home. They make more things than just cereal now, but it's like, yeah, like really weird that it is just true, tried and true that like food doesn't really go away and people have to eat. They'll just choose the format a little differently. Um, yeah, really
You want to
interesting.
develop Soylent? Go for it. You want to be, Levin Madison Park chef? Go for it. They're all within the food industry, but wildly different ways of getting people nutrition and powering bodies. But yeah, exactly. You have to eat. There's no substitute for eating.
Yeah, there really
That's
isn't.
it.
Not yet. Yeah,
Yeah, you work on that. Let me know. Yeah, become a
yeah.
humanoid. Yeah.
Someone let me know if there's going to be a substitute for food anytime soon.
I'll try photosynthesizing for a little while. Let you know
Yeah,
how it goes.
go out in the sun, and you'll be fine. You go outside naked, and you can photosynthesize eventually. Like no, you can't. Um,
Good try.
you can try. All right, man. Well, Mark, tell everyone where to find your brand, where to find you and follow you, and wrap it up.
Yeah, so right now available locally in tri-state area ShopRites, Uncle Giuseppe's, bunch of stores in the tri-state area, but online at Amazon on my website onoin.com, exactly how it sounds, onoin. Follow us at eat.onoin on Instagram, TikTok. Look out for us in hopefully your national store soon enough.
I'm excited. I will throw everything all in the show notes if anyone's interested, and also I will shout out again. Relish is a really great platform for finding micro influencers. I use it at No Baked. You should probably use it with your brand. It's pretty
Yeah,
awesome.
check out right
For
now.
a very, very small amount of money, you can manage and shop micro influencers by posting tasks for them to do. And I watched brands like Crumb's Bake Shop become the best selling item in Kroger because of Relish. I'm a big fan of it. Uh,
Take a look at that. Yeah.
anyways, dude, Mark, this has been great.
Thank you so much.
Let's chat again soon,
Yeah.
but I will see you later.